As Vice Chair of the Planning Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which I am authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we, A, provide public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities of video or electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access contemporaneously to listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing the following phone: 1-646-558-8656. Password will be 955-271-8105. Or you can click on the following website address. It is https://zoom.us/J as in Joseph 955-271-8105. This meeting is also being aired on Newmarket Channel 13 for those wishing to watch on their TV, and it is streaming at www.newmarketnh.gov/channel 13. B, we are providing public notice.
You had a nice day, buddy. Did you get to Gussie a little bit?
Can people mute there? Thank you. B, we are providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the board at https://www.newmarket.gov/planning-board. C, we are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please call 603-659-3617, extension 1321, or you can email channel13@newmarketnh.gov. Adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that we will be handling all votes by a roll call meeting, and we will start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there's anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. I'd also like to correct this, that we have provided public access by opening up the town hall. If anyone wishes to attend the meeting at the town hall, you can join in there. With that, I will call the roll. Eric Bodeman. Eric, are you on the call? No. Eric has an excused absence. Val Shelton, I am here, and no one is in the room with me. Jane Ford.
I'm present and I'm alone.
Thank you. William Doucette.
I'm here and alone.
Thank you. Timothy Rosignol.
Here, my wife's in the next room.
Okay, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Jeff Goldknopf.
Present and currently alone.
And welcome to Jeff as well.
Thank you.
Mikhail Zaharik.
Present and alone.
Mikhail, you will be sitting in for Eric Boderman this evening.
Okay.
Scott Blackstone.
Present and alone.
Val, I'm here.
Oh, Eric, you're here?
I'm sorry. Val, I'm here for a little bit anyways. I'm here. I'm sorry I was muted.
Okay. So, Mikhail, if Eric isn't participating, I will appoint you at that time. Scott Blackstone?
Present and alone.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first order of agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone, so if anyone's in the meeting, please mute unless you're speaking. Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First order of on the agenda is the review and approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve
I
from the
make
board?
a motion to approve the March 16th, 2021 minutes.
Motion by Mr. Doucette. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Jane Ford. Okay, any discussion on the minutes? Any corrections? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. Eric Boderman? Eric, are you with us? Okay, Jane Ford,
approved.
Bill Doucette,
Aye.
Tim Rosignol,
Aye.
Jeff Goldop.
Abstain?
Are you abstaining?
Yes. Abstain?
Thanks.
Due to absence.
Tim may want to.
Tim, are
also.
you abstaining? You
I
were
was able-
abstaining.
I was able to review the minutes and I was also at the
Perfect.
last meeting, so.
We'll record the vote. Mikkel Zahora?
Aye.
Okay. Scott Blackstone?
Aye.
Eric, are you back with us? All right, I'm recording Mikkel's vote for Eric. Okay. Next order of business, is there anyone on the call from the public who wishes to make a public comment that is nothing on the agenda for this evening? And if you could use your little raise hand or just speak up. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment section. First order under regular business. This is a continuation of a public hearing for the request from John Tyson of Hampton, New Hampshire, who has a purchase and sales agreement for property at 75 Neal Mill Road. Pursuant to the RSA 674:41, he is requesting permission from the town council to build a single-family home and driveway access for a single-family home at the property at 75 Neal Mill Road, Newmarket, New Hampshire, which is a tax map R7 Lot 1. The town council has requested review and comment from the planning board regarding this request. So did the applicant, we did some research on this. I asked Diane, Eric and I asked Diane to send out to the board the memorandum that was sent October 15, 2008, when the board took up this same issue for a prior applicant. And a lot of due diligence was done at that time. The reason for this is, number one, we don't want the applicant, and I'm referring to you as an applicant. I know this is an application before us, but we didn't think that it was fair to the prospective purchaser of this property to have to go through considerable time and expense in sidewalks or engineering in order for, and then go to the town council, and the town council, whether or not they approved it, that really would have been, not fair to the prospective purchaser or as an applicant. So did the applicant also get a copy of this, Diane? John? Yeah. Is there?
Forwarded to Mr. Albert, and it's also up on the virtual agenda, Novus agenda online if people want to view it there.
Okay, and I would just like to comment that we know that our comments, if the planning board decides to move this forward, if we use this as a basis, we would obviously update it to reflect what the current process has been for this particular applicant in regards to what their proposed use is, and certainly the deliberations that we have had. Any questions at this point from the applicant or their attorney?
Yes, James Scully. I'll let Chris Albert go after. I just had a quick question as far as any substantive additions that would be made to that. Would we be privy to know that information this evening, or is that something that would be coming out later?
I think I was really referring to, there's the name of the Jazziano within the application. There's some comments as to what their proposed use was, which would not apply here.
Absolutely.
Obviously on this go around, we did not do any investigations relative to other town, ordinances regarding class 6. So more of those types of items, and
Sure.
certainly I think that the town planner should send this to you for review.
Yeah.
Our intent was to get this before the council before you have to start spending a lot of money.
Understood.
And the board will deliberate on this relative to the 3 recommendations that we forwarded to the town council at that time.
Okay.
With being only one of them really applies to the planning board.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll turn it over to Chris. Thank you.
Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really didn't have too much more to add. I mean, I think, I understand with Diane tonight is really just kind of your take to present this to town council. So at tonight's hearing, we don't have any new information, of course. So we're just really here for any type of Q&A answers that the board may have back to us. And hopefully, like you said, have recommendations from the planning board at tonight to move this forward to town council, however you want to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Does the board have any questions?
I do.
Bill, yeah.
So are we proposing that we use the general outline that was used back in, was that 2008? And edit that accordingly, and, eliminate things that are not pertinent, like former proposed uses and like that, and come to agreement to what that says and forward that to the town council, period.
That is correct. It relative to the town, to the planner, the planning board's role in this process, which our recommendation at that time, and if the board is in agreement tonight, would be relative to if the town council, because there's bigger issues here that are not of the purview of the planning board. It's really more of the town council's role into determining whether or not they want to issue building permits for the Class 6 road. The role of the planning board is to ensure that it's not premature or scattered development, and that it is, it's safe, and that the town's not taking on the liability relative to the actual issue of the road and the construction of the road and access for emergency vehicles. And therefore, that particular recommendation under number 1 is that if in fact the town council gives the green light, to the applicant, because at that point they would have an application, or they do have an application before the council. If the council gives a green light and agrees with the planning board, that they, with regards to it needs to come back to the planning board for basically the approval of the planning board relative to the road construction under our existing ordinances, that's up to the council. This would be our recommendation, that it should come back to us. And at that time, then at least the applicant understands that here are the regulations. You may have to request waivers in order to basically meet the regulations, but you're not doing that ahead of time and then going to the town council and they say no. So that, to answer your question, Bill, yes, as edited, but that we would anticipate it would come back to the board. Bill, you're on mute.
It appears to me that anticipation was reflected in the planning board recommendations of 2008 as well. That there would be, further review after town council approval or conditional approval. Would it be appropriate if I were to make a motion that we provide our recommendations to the town council based on page 3 of the 2008 letter entitled Planning Board Recommendations, so the bottom half of page 3, except for changing owners' names if they are stated here, which I'm not seeing it quickly, but and removing discussion about proposed uses.
Yeah, Bill,
Other than construction of a single-family home.
before you do that, Bill, I want to hear from more board members, okay? And then I want to hear from anyone in the public if they have questions on how we're handling this process. So Josh, I saw you waving your hand there. Okay, I will definitely recognize you. And then Bill, absolutely, we would entertain a motion. Any other board members? Let me just go through to make it easier because we have a lot of people on this board here on the call. Jane, any questions or comments?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Tim?
No questions this time.
Okay. Jeff?
My one thought would be, are any of the items on page 2 still pertinent? I know we didn't discuss them. I do believe maybe some of those items were discussed, but can they still be provided with a date of a previous recommendation, as some of them, like I said, may still make sense?
Do you have any in particular that you're questioning?
Well, there's talk in here about if the road was to then further be improved and how they would get 50 feet out of it, things like that.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
The conditions at the time in 2008 would appear to be the same as they are today. There's been no improvements made to the road. Obviously, we understand there's a lot more use of the area, but relative to those items, these were the issues that were deliberated on extensively back in 2008 as to what, if there are any that particularly don't apply. Like, we haven't changed the zoning. I think maybe something that may have applied, might change that would be looked at is, some communities don't allow structures, beyond 600 feet. That's what we found back in 2008. Some limit the length of a cul-de-sac to 1,000 or 1,200. These were just comments relative to that point in time. But I don't know if you had any particular items that you saw on page 2 that you think do not apply, or you would question whether they still apply.
I have not assessed it for those that do not apply. I can take a quick look though, and I'll pass on the mic.
Mikal?
I don't have any comments.
Okay, Scott?
I agree with you, Val. I think that the perspective of the town council is going to be very different from the perspective of the planning board. I think that it's good for the client to take it first to the town council, so that if they say no, then there's no cost. We haven't forced the applicant to incur a lot of costs for nothing. So I would agree with that approach.
Thank you. Josh, Lanzetta, so anyone speaking from the public, if you could just state your name when I recognize you, and your address, please. Josh?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Josh Lanzetta. My address is 601 Central Avenue, Dover, New Hampshire, 03820. I'm an attorney at Bruton and Berube. I'm here this evening representing Dr. Joff Barnett and also the Southeast Land Trust. Dr. Barnett and the Southeast Land Trust are both direct abutters to the property proposed for development here. We have a number of concerns, and Dr. Barnett's concerns specifically align with those of CELT, So I'm going to try to speak very briefly about our concerns, and I want to make sure the board understands that we're asking that the board make the recommendation as is its right and mandate under RSA 674-41 to deny this application, that you recommend that the select board deny this application. There are a number of reasons that this application is completely deficient. And it is the planning board's job, as mandated by the statute, to review this application and make recommendations, specific recommendations, to the town council. You can't punt. You can't punt. Legally, you have to make recommendations that the council can rely on. You're right. The council has a very different function than that of the planning board. The plans and the application packet that's been submitted is grossly deficient. We can't actually have, as abutters, a coherent conversation about what this application means for this road, for the abutters, and for the region. As you all know, this area abuts the Pecasset Greenway, and there are a few different Class 6 roads and also a trail that interconnect here. There are real safety concerns that are not addressed in this applicant's materials, and we really can't talk about them. So I can guess at what is kind of happening here. And so I'm going to address some of these issues, but it's the board's job to mandate that the applicant submit proper plans so that they can be reviewed by the town's road agent. The road agent can give commentary to this board, and this board can then make recommendations to town council. So the first concern we have, and the underlying concern, is safety. We have heard throughout this application process kind of different plans related to roadbed substrates, grading, and fill. There are wetlands involved here. That issue has not been fleshed out by the applicant in any way. And we don't know really, there's allegedly a 2-rod public way. We've heard possibly that it's a 14-foot road infrastructure proposal. And I want to be clear that this is not a driveway proposal. This is a public way. The driveway to this property would start at the curb cut proposed by the applicant. Every other portion of the development proposed is on a Class 6 road, which is a public way. We don't know what the substrates are. We don't know if the applicant is going to do test pits, core drilling. We don't know where in that public way this road will ultimately fall. There's 700 feet approximately from the existing terminus of Neal Mill Road to the property. We don't know what the ledge is, where they're going to blast or may need to move things to bury power lines. None of that has been fully fleshed out, and the plans are deficient as to all of these issues. There's a safety concern that if we add soil substrates to this road, if we raise the roadbed a 1.5 to 2 feet or however much, what does that do to the topography? I had the chance to walk this property today for the first time. I've never been to this part of New Hampshire, even though I was born and raised here. The road is all over the place. I think everyone knows that. There are very steep pitches that pitch down to the roadbed. There are ditches at parts of it. There is a lot of ledge and rock protruding from the roadbed. It's very soft because it's surrounded by jurisdictional wetlands. And we have no idea what the changes, really what these changes are proposed. We have this amorphous, we're going to possibly upgrade this road to some unknown standard. And that's a real safety concern for all people accessing this road. The second kind of 1A safety concern is related to the existing gate. This is a Class 6 road that is gated. Now that gate is chained but remains open. If I wasn't a land use lawyer and I didn't know what I know about road law, I would drive my 4Runner up to that, a car that could probably drive on almost any road in New Hampshire. And I would think, oh, this is closed, can't drive down there. And I would stop there, try to park, and I'd be a pedestrian from there on in, right? mechanizing this gate, removing the gate, or possibly relocating the gate, I think causes an enormous safety issue that would end up in possible policing and enforcement on the town's part on this Class 6 road. I think we don't know what needs to happen with that gate, and I think it's the planning board's job to try to sort that out pre-select board review. The way this is supposed to work is the planning board vets an application thoroughly, and then that application is sent to the select board for ultimate approval or denial. It's the applicant's burden to provide the materials necessary for a robust and full review. So that has not been done here. And we don't know what's going to happen with that gate. And I think that removing that gate or moving it maybe 700 or 800 feet down this public way is going to create a whole new host of safety issues for the town of Newmarket. There is no parking area on this road past that gate. The road at points today we measured, the road bed's about 10 feet in some spots, it's 14 feet in some spots, give or take. There's nowhere to park. And if you open this up to vehicular traffic, it's a lot easier to drive down there without a gate. And it's a lot easier to drive down at least 700 feet, the gate's moved. Where are those cars going to park? Who is going to police it when a car is blocking the road? And what does that mean for the town? Does that mean that the town is suddenly policing and now maybe maintaining this road? And does that mean that maybe this road is now considered upgraded to Class 5 status, where the town now has to pay for maintenance and access on this road? We don't know because the applicant hasn't provided the proper materials for the board to review. The length of this road improvement, as proposed, is approximately 700 feet from the terminus of the pavement at the gated access point. I think it's been referenced here that most towns have a limit on how far a possible waiver request would be allowed on a Class 6 road. Now, I understand the Newmarket doesn't have that. That's unfortunate. However, 700 feet is really far. That's almost halfway to the trail, where the trail starts, and it's substantially past Old Lee Road, which is a Class 6 road that intersects with this road. And again, going back to the gate issue, what happens if the gate is moved or removed? What happens to Old Lee Road? Are people now driving on that road? And what does the traffic look like? This is a pretty heavily trafficked area. So again, safety issues and the road length, coming back to the road length issue, the idea behind limiting a road length distance, a linear footage, and you could probably, as an analogy, apply subdivision regulations in this instance, is to limit the one way in, one way out nature of this sort of development. At this point, if this gate remains or if it's removed, and there's one house at the end of this road, all of Newmarket's emergency access vehicles would need to be able to get down that road and turn around. Now, I know that the applicant proposes a turnaround. We looked at that proposed location today. It would require hundreds and hundreds of yards of material to fill, and it is right next to jurisdictional wetlands. It's not clear to me that the applicant will be able to fill that area, and I don't know that an L-shaped hammerhead on a suspect soil bed substrate is something that the town should agree to at this point without more information. And again, this goes to the point that the application is deficient in every way. The last point that I want to make about this is that right now in Newmarket zoning ordinance, this is a non-conforming lot. The town does not have to grant the expansion of some use of a non-conforming lot. That's why there's a waiver process. And bringing that back to the RSA, it's the board's job before the select board's review to provide the appropriate comments about this project. And we don't believe, respectfully, that the applicant has submitted the appropriate documentation and the appropriate plan sets that would allow this board and the public at large to have the requisite feedback required of a project of this nature. We want to assert that the timbre of this neighborhood will forever change if this lot is developed. Now, we're not here to say that the lot cannot be developed or that it can be developed. What we're saying is that in order to make that decision, which will be precedent setting in this town, there's no doubt about that. 700 feet down a Class 6 road doesn't happen. I can tell you that because I do this work all of the time. This will be precedent setting for the entire greenway. This is an island of unpreserved land amidst conservation land in the town of Newmarket. And this board needs to take control and actually review a properly submitted application. So respectfully, we have safety concerns, we don't have answers, and it's not appropriate to just punt this over to the select board without vetting this project thoroughly and providing articulate, rational, and the critical word is reasonable recommendations. At this point, the application as it stands the recommendation has to be to deny it so that the applicant comes back with a full application. It is their burden to provide the correct materials. It is not the town's. They are trying to build on a Class 6 road. When they bought this property, they had actual notice that this property was accessed via a Class 6 gated road. Actual notice. So they knew this. It's their burden, and we strongly encourage the board to either continue this hearing and require that the applicant come back with proper materials, or to make the recommendation that this is denied. I'll cede the floor, and I am happy to answer any questions about the relevant laws. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Mr. Chaffee?
Thank you, Ms. Shelton. Going back to 2008, just looking over some of the notes from what happened back then and some of the discussions, two things I noted were the council was starting a working committee to develop a Class 6. It was recommended that the council
Was recommended, correct.
recommended, and they were that was somehow in motion. And not to look in the rear view mirror, but lives would be easier if that policy had been put in place back then. Also, from the last public hearing, the Conservation Commission was kind of holding their cards for the time being until there was a site walk, until things advanced. In the event that that doesn't happen, if you continue on the course that you're suggesting, I would like to see or hear the Conservation Commission's take on this, because they did opine in 2008 prior to the town council getting the recommendation. And finally, if you look at the way that the recommendation to the council was made, and I understand there's requirements for the verbiage, but the sentence structure, it flows like this is approved. And there's ifs in there. If this is approved, the planning board should do this, that, and the other. But if you read it quickly, it says, it infers approval from a planning board. So it's being served fully cooked to the town council. Here's our recommendations, and when we get it back from you to work on it, these are the caveats that we have, which those are all worthy. It's just the way that the language is presented there. So if you're going to cut and paste from 2008, I'd just be mindful of things that are out of date, of course, but also the way it's positioned, that you're making, this is your summary, this is your recommendation, not a fait accompli. Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other members of the public? I'm sorry, can't. Joff?
Yes, hi, Joff Barnett. I'm one of the abutters. The driveway will go through land that I have on both sides. And first I have a question for the planning board, because it was my understanding that during the last meeting, there was some discussion about having a site review with the applicant at some point. And so I'm surprised a little bit. Wasn't that the case? Or do I have that completely wrong?
No, there was discussion on that.
So from my point of view, I think it's that you need to take a look at the site prior to just taking what was written 13 years ago and forwarding that to the council. Things have changed. I'm sure the road has changed to some degree over the course of a decade, more than a decade. And I think it would behoove the planning board to walk the road with the applicant, to hear what the applicant is going to talk about, take a look at least the plan that they had put forward, involved removal of some trees, removal of some rocks, and really take a look at the topography that's going on there. And so I'm, as a member of the public, I'm expressing surprise that you're just picking up something from 13 years ago and just going to send that forward to the town council. And I would recommend and request that the planning board do more and really find out whether those points that are in that memo from 2008 apply in this time. And that's the only thing I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the public's benefit, to be clear, the recommendation from the planning board in 08 was that the council require an actual application be filed with the planning board relative to the road construction and all the issues, as Attorney Lozada has brought up, are reviewed as part of the subdivision regulations relative to that particular section of our subdivision regulations. So to be clear, that was the recommendation of the board. And I think that's where Bill was heading with his motion. It's not just to turn it over to the council and say that our recommendation is to, approve this, or just punt it and put it back into their court. I'm going to let other members of the public speak. Attorney Lozada first. Anyone else from the public? And I apologize. I can't see everyone who's on the call. Is there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Just unmute yourself and I'll try to get you recognized. Okay. Before I close the public hearing, Attorney Lozada, if you have any more comments, if you could keep them brief, you're good? Okay. All right. Hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment section. Okay, planning board members. Additional comments?
I have one more comment here. So I did notice something in the upper portion that I believe should be removed, but as far as the council granting potentially an approval on their end, and then it comes back to the planning board, at that point, if there's is that the blank slate where they start designing what we ask, or what the regulations provide? It almost feels like it's a done deal at that point, and it's a clear path to approval.
Well,
one thing I would say is that if the applicant would be held to the subdivision regulations, that possibly number 1 on the bottom would need to be modified, where it says in granting approval, the planning board may apply the process and standards provided. Should that say shall, or? Because if it says may, does that not then give?
Well, I think that would be, what would be included in the motion if someone's so making that motion. But your point taken, Jeff, is that it's not, that recommendation to the council is, and the council says, yeah, we're in agreement with that. And the applicant comes back with their full-blown set of plans. If you read our subdivision regulations relative to the road section of it, they can't meet all those regulations unless we grant waivers. So they're gonna have to prove before the board, if in fact that's what the council agrees with, they would have to be able to meet those regulations. I mean, road width, they don't have 50 feet of a road width. So we would have to be waiving some of those, and they would have to meet all of the engineering requirements, and then, you know, as was presented, the wetlands, you know, issues as well. I'm sorry, I've closed the public hearing. Bill?
So I agree with you, Val, that you cannot state that it shall meet subdivision regulations, because subdivision regulations do not speak specific to this application. This is not an application for subdivision. This is an application for access along a Class 6 road to reach a residential use.
Well, sorry.
And if I misspoke, I was referring to the specific section of the subdivision regulations as was in the recommendation. I'm sorry, Jeff?
Well, it's okay. I would think that the starting point would be shall, and then the waiver would be granted to create may. But I guess I could be incorrect on that.
Yeah, we're not supposed to use the word shall anymore. Must. So I think Attorney Lozetta suggested that this is chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken. I did not hear anything from the applicant on a rebuttal of that. So little perplexed by that, but we started out this evening talking about what we would do is, instead of this applicant being faced with the burden of considerable engineering design and satisfaction of all the concerns that have been brought forward, I don't think anybody has suggested that any of these concerns have fallen on deaf ears. We take all this input from abutters, from the public, very, very seriously, and we're not trying to ignore those conditions. What the attempt is here is, let's not spend a lot of everybody's time, the planning board's time, technical review time, town engineer time. If for some reason the town council doesn't want to do this, you know, for a non-technical reason, for a reason that does not have to do with engineering standards, safety of access to this road, let's find that out now, instead of going through all this. And their approval will be conditioned upon we are satisfied that this can be safe and harmonious with the other users of this town road. I mean, this parcel in question was a lot before these abutting parcels were lots. I doubt they were paid damages that forced them to no longer have rights along this town road when this converted from a 5 to a 6. So this seems like a reasonable compromise. Let's find out what the temperature of the town council is before we lead this applicant into considerable burden.
May I speak, Madam Chair?
I will reopen the public hearing, and then if Attorney Lozada, if you also want to speak again. Chris?
Yeah, no, I think, you know, I've been working with Diane over the last couple of weeks since our last hearing of, you know, kind of having the marching orders from the planning board to us, the applicant, on how to proceed. And I think it was, you know, Ms. Hardy's, decision and the boards that this would be the course of action, which makes sense to me and the applicant. Again, we're talking about a substantial amount of money to get to a point where it goes to town council and they could shoot it down to begin with. So I appreciate Mr. Doucette's thought process and the planning board's thought process on how to make this work. Because again, I took this project on just as a normal Class 6 driveway. And as far as the other attorney that's been speaking, I mean, we did Benaya Lane in the town of Epping, which is a house lot on a residential driveway. It's about a 2,000 foot Class 6 road. So it does happen. They're out there in the state. Again, I thought this was a simple project, but again, we've got a lot of environmental concerns with the butters, and I think this is a sensitive project. So we're here to work with the planning board and everybody, and the whole gate issue. I mean, we're willing to work with fire rescue, TRC, the planning board, council. Do we have a mechanized gate? Do we take the gate away? I mean, again, we're opening to suggestions because we're all vested interest on that between CELT and the abutter, and limiting access to the roadway. So again, it started out as an open dialogue. So again, I appreciate the planning board's discretion on how to move forward. I don't think you guys are kicking the can. I think it's a good process where we find out what the town council actually thought process on this before we start spending a lot of time and effort. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Attorney Scully?
Yeah, if I may, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I apologize I didn't respond immediately. I didn't know that I was privy to that opportunity. And so rather than, I think, get into a lengthy legal argument for the board and with Attorney Lanzetta, I agree with Mr. Doucette, and I think I agree with Chris as well with how this has unfolded. And ultimately, rather than get into a lengthy legal argument this evening, I agree with the board's approach. And as you all are aware, we've worked with you previously at other meetings and think that this is a viable approach because this would be exorbitantly expensive upon the applicant, not knowing if this is even a possibility. And pursuant to the statute, I mean, we're referencing Chapter 674, specifically Section 41, and ultimately the decision as to whether or not what this board has to get put forth, it's up to the planning board what's necessary for the applicant, for the burden. The statute specifically states that it's really up to you all as to what needs to be put forth to the town council. So ultimately that responsibility is up to you. And while I respect my brother's concerns in this field, I do think that the decision rests with you all in putting this forward to the governing body, that in this case being the town council. So I don't think statutorily you all are doing anything wrong with moving this forward to town council. In fact, I think at this juncture, it's probably appropriate, rather than have everyone spin their wheels for an excessive amount of time, ultimately to get to a town council decision where they may say this, we're not in favor of this, or perhaps they are. But if they are, then this still is going to go through a overwhelmingly stringent, analysis before this happens. So I do appreciate my brother's concerns. I understand them, but I do appreciate the board's willingness to consider moving this forward with the concerns that were raised by Mr. Doucette. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Scully. Attorney Lozada, do you have just a new information to present?
I just have one quick response. I just want to call to the board's attention and respectfully to everyone that's commented tonight. The critical word to focus on in 674-41 D sub 1 is the word after. It's the word after. The local governing body, which in this case is the town select board, after review and comment by the planning board. That review and comment needs to be more robust than referencing a document from 2008 from a different applicant for a different project. I understand that modifications to that document will be made, but you don't have enough information to make proper review and comment. The select board is not a board with your expertise. The statute is designed specifically for the planning board to review a full application and then make specific comments about approval or denial to the Board of Selectmen. This is how it works in the state of New Hampshire. I can tell you this because actually almost 99.9% of the time work for developers. I'm usually on the other side of this issue. And I can tell you that the argument of saving costs, which is I'm not trying to bring the gods of cost down on the applicant. And I understand that this is an expensive process, but I work with clients over the last decade and a half that deal with this all the time. You have to get the right answer and the right comments before you go to the next level. You don't get to double dip with contemporaneous filings, and you don't get out of jail free by kicking the can to a different board to review and then saying, well, our review will be subject to further review again by the planning board. That doesn't work. That's not the legal standard, and that's not the way it works in this state. And I think the case law is really clear on that. Moving forward, my clients asked me to ask, to make sure that if this does get punted, which we really strongly recommend that if you're going to punt, you at least recommend a denial, because there's not sufficient evidence to weigh this project. I don't think the subdivision regulations are going to necessarily help one way or the other, and I don't know if they apply. It's not a subdivision. Mr. Doucette's right about that. Just not. So this is the chance to review your ordinance and to look at this road and to tell the select board, hey, this works because of X, Y, and Z. It doesn't work because of X, Y, and Z. It might come out favoring the development or it might not, but that's your job. It's not the select board, and your job is now. So a continuance asking for more robust plans and a better application is the most appropriate thing you can do. The second most appropriate thing that you can do, respectfully, is make the recommendation that the board deny this application in its current form. My client would like to confirm that, if it goes to select board, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'd like it on the public record, we want to make sure everyone understands that it would then come back to the planning board for full public review, noticed review, and commentary. But at this point, you're punting, and I think that you're obligated to make robust comments on an appropriately filed application. Saving cost is not the town's problem. I understand the impetus. I think it's great. I wish I saw that with more zoning matters in a way, but that's not the way it works. So respectfully, I think we would request that you would continue this and ask for a better plan set so that we can have an actual conversation with the applicant about the requirements and make real recommendations in 2021 to the board, or that you make, if you want to kick this to the board, that you do so with the recommendation of a denial. That's all I have.
Before I close the public comments again for the final time, are there any other comments from the public?
Do I have permission to respond?
Yes, but we're not going to get involved with attorney to attorney. The board has its own attorney. If we feel like we have erred, we will be taking this up with our attorney if they bring it back. If in fact, if there's a motion tonight to be made.
Absolutely. And that's what I want to avoid, Madam Chairman. So I appreciate that. So my response ultimately is what I said before, and I apologize to be repetitive, but it's up to the planning board to determine whether or not the application is complete. So really the jurisdiction rests with you all as to determine whether or not it should move forward to the town council or not. So we respectfully disagree, and we're hoping that you all would be understanding of that, and we look forward to continuing to work with the town throughout this process. That's all. Thank you.
All right, I am closing the public hearing. Board members, Bill.
Is there an application before us?
There's not.
So we cannot vote whether something is complete or not. There has not been an application submitted.
Correct. We're providing comments to the town. Diane, hold on. We're providing comments to the town council as relative to the council acting on that application. Diane, if you unmute yourself. Diane, you have to unmute yourself.
I have a copy of the RSA right in front of me, and I just want to make sure that the planning board understands. The language says after review and comment. It says nothing about submission and review of
Yeah.
details of the project. And as a matter of fact, I had a discussion with our own legal counsel about it, who said ultimately the decision is the town council's. So I think that maybe you're right. I think we do need to get some feedback, perhaps from our own legal counsel, to clarify what the expectations are for the planning board in doing their job, which is to review and comment. It is not to approve detailed plans at this stage. And that's my comment. And that's what I would recommend, that you get a legal opinion from John Radigan to clarify, because it doesn't say anything about detailed plans. It doesn't say anything about the onus is on the town to come up with standards. It says none of that. And maybe it is in case.
Yeah, let's not get involved with what they are.
Than from the applicants. Thank you.
Where does the board want to head with this? Is there a motion? It's either a motion to continue and take another step, or it's a motion to move it forward, and if we are requesting any conditions, Mr. Doucette?
I'll make a motion to continue. I think we need to get some information from our town attorney.
Does the board concur with that? Jane?
I definitely support Bill's statement.
Or is that a second?
Second.
Okay, Bill, you need to make the motion actually to the next meeting, which is May 11th.
I make a motion to continue this hearing to the May 11th meeting and request that Diane contact town council for advice moving forward.
Legal counsel.
Legal counsel.
Thank you.
Jane, that was a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Scott Blackstone?
Aye.
Mikhail Zahorik?
I'm not sure, Valerie, if I'm in. I don't know if Eric is here or not.
No, Eric has left.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Holding up? Tim Rosignol?
Aye.
William Doucette?
Aye.
Jane Ford?
Aye.
Valerie Shelton? Aye. Okay, this shall be continued to the May 11th meeting, and Diane, you'll send this out to John Radigan and then get back to the board, please. Okay, next on the agenda, CRC Future Corp. There will be a public hearing for an application for an amendment to the final subdivision and major site plan requested by CRC Future Corp. For a site plan approved on 11/12/19 to increase the number of units from 28 to 38. There will be 6 single-family homes where 7 were previously approved, and the remaining previously approved single-family homes will become duplexes. The lot is located at Hershey Lane, tax map R5, lot 132 in the R2 zone. Who is, I'm sorry, people are.
I need to abstain.
Here,
Okay,
Alex Montesiro.
hold on, Diane. All right, Jeff, are you abstaining as well?
Yeah, I'll recuse myself from the discussion.
Recusing yourself. Okay, we still have enough members. Who is speaking for the applicant?
I will, Paul Kerrigan, for
Okay,
Chinburg Development.
Kerrigan. Why don't you kind of give the board an overview as to what is being proposed as to the changes?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you. Tonight, we're seeking approval for the application before you for the amended subdivision plan for tax map 5, lot 132 in the R2 zone. Our previous approval was for 28 single condo units, and our amended plan should show 16 duplexes and 6 singles. And at the previous planning board, we brought the board up to speed at that point with a chronology of our design process, and I won't go through that whole chronology, but I will just hit a few of the highlights. We worked pretty closely with the abutters, as there are 10 existing units in this particular condo association. They're already a part of Hershey, just off Hershey Lane. It's on Green Road. We worked with the abutters, and we had several meetings with them. We ended up eliminating one of the singles up on top of the knoll. There were 7 units at one point. We eliminated one of the units and shifted those units around a little bit, shifted them away from
You, not to interrupt, but do you have the plan that you want to put up?
Sure. If I could find.
Madam Chair, Scott Colton Beals. I actually have the plan ready if you want me to share my screen.
Yeah, that's fine.
That'd be great. Thank you, Scott.
Okay.
Everybody see that?
It should be coming. We have it. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's why we brought Scott tonight. So of the cul-de-sac units off Summit Circle, we were able to push one of those units away as we eliminated one of them away from the existing duplexes, which you can see to the lower right. We also were able to maintain a little bit more of the buffer between those two areas. We met with the owners and talked about a little bit more screening. So that seemed to work in both of our favors. And one of the major reasons was to go to the duplexes was when we had 21 single units down on the lower Stonewall Way. When we went to those duplexes, it opened up a few more view corridors between the units. We did in fact increase the number of units, but it actually gave us a little bit more open space. And given that the duplexes were already in existence, the existing units on Greenway, I believe it was favorable for those unit owners as well.
Have there been any road changes?
There has not been any road changes.
Okay,
no.
Thank you.
No. The road geometry is identical. We did shift a drainage detention area about 10 feet away from the existing units. But for all intents and purposes, if you look at the two plans side by side, it would not look much different at all. We just added a little bit of space between the existing units and that detention area. And again, that allowed for some added buffering. So we now we applied for our AOT permits. We have the AOT permit back. We have our New Hampshire DES sewer permit back. The DES Water Board has signed off. We have our contractor, Severino Trucking, is all set and ready to go, and they would be applying for the Schwipp's permitting and the EPA NOI. So really the only difference between the plan before you and our previous submittal a month ago is that we included a couple of landscape entries. But this plan is identical to the plan that we had previously submitted. But it is, of course, different than our original or our approval back in November of 2019. So the major difference is just that we went with duplexes along that lower road. So the total unit count was 28, is now 38.
And the total units for the combined development relative to the original approval is what?
It was 52 for the total number of approved units. It is now 48 if you include the existing and as well as our proposed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And from there, I don't know if you have any questions of either Scott Cole or myself, but we'd be glad to open up the floor for any questions.
I'm going to open it up to the public if you are finished with your presentation or having nothing further to present to the board.
Scott, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, I think you explained it all. We're, like you said, we're in very decent shape. We've done our homework as far as the state and everything else, and it's we're up to the board at this point.
Thank you. Any members of the public?
Hi. This is Tom Grilly. I'm the president of the Percy Green Condo Association, which is the 10 units at the lower right. And yeah, I spoke the last time, but I just want to say that we're on board with this because this is actually pretty much the original kind of closer to the original plan that we first had, and then it switched to single family, and then it's kind of back to where it was. So we don't really see a heck of a lot of difference. And Paul and his group were very, very good in helping us get a little better buffer that extra house would have had a little impact on us. So we're very pleased with this, and we have no issues going forward. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Gurley. Any other comments from the public? I can't see everyone, so please just speak up. Okay, hearing none, I will close the public hearing. Any questions from the board to the applicant? Okay, Diane, you have made some recommendations in your planner's report. If you could review those, please, with the board.
Certainly. As you know, this is not the first time this revision to this original plan has come before the planning board. I think this is probably the third iteration. The original plan was approved back in '87. In 2012, we spent a lot of time in relooking at this whole development. And there were some conditions, because we all understood at the time, and we do now, that this is a vested project, and that the developer and others who worked with the developer had incurred substantial costs in upgrading the infrastructure, the roadways, the public utilities, in order for this project to go forward. And back in 1990, I believe the date was, the planning board at that time voted that this is a vested project. So what that means is that any changes in the town's regulations, we're really not in a position to impose. And there have been changes, namely this concept was called an alternative design subdivision, which was sort of predated our cluster development, but that is no longer in effect. So the planning board had looked at specific requirements that are really kind of outside the town's jurisdiction, but we would like to seek confirmation on. And that is on stormwater management planning, which are not, DES regulations are not exempt from applicability in the case of a vested project. Secondly, we wanted to make sure that all the pertinent permits from the federal and the state were in place before the start of construction. And the third is that at the end of the project, we would have a final as-built of the plan that could be used going forward before any certificates of occupancy were issued for the project. So I am following suit to what we did last year, actually, this came before us in September 2019. And I'm recommending the same conditions that we recommended last time, which is that the applicant provide that stormwater management plan, number one. Number two, that copies of all permits be provided to the town prior to the start of construction. And thirdly, that we have as-built drawings. We've also had some discussions with the applicant about the need to have some kind of construction oversight of this by the town. And some of the other projects that have been implemented over the years, there were some issues that came up. So we talked about the possibility of having funds in escrow. So in the event there were some engineering concerns that came up during construction, we would be able to address those issues and move forward with the plan. So with that, I'm recommending that we approve tonight's application for 38 units on this tract of land with the 3 conditions. And the conditions are actually on the town's website for anyone from the public who's interested in looking at them. They're contained within my memo. And I guess with that, I would present it as a recommendation.
You just muted yourself, Diane. Okay. All right. Does the applicant have any questions relative to the planner's recommendations on condition of approval?
I don't think so. I reviewed two of the three of them with Diane, and I understand all of them. So I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So any other questions of the board to Diane?
Just had one question, Val.
Yes.
Diane mentioned 38 units, and I think just for clarification, that's 38 new units, not including the 10 existing units on Green Road. Is that
correct? And
that's correct.
That's stated in my memo, which the planning board uses in formalizing the motions. But yes, it's for 38 new units for a total of 48 for that overall phase of the project. Thanks for making sure and saying things on that.
And that is the application. So can I get a motion from a member of the board relative to the application being approved with the conditions as recommended by the town planner? Jane, would you make that motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that, and you'll have to excuse me because I don't have the document right here in front of me. I make a motion that we accept the plan as is, along with Diane's, I believe, 3 recommendations.
Correct. Okay. And can I have a second?
That being said, I will second.
Second by Tim?
That's correct.
No, thank you. Any further discussion by the board? Hearing none, I will call the roll vote. Val Shelton, aye. Jane Ford.
Aye.
Timothy Rosignol.
Aye.
Michael Zahorik.
Aye.
Scott Blackstone.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous approval. Congratulations, and wish you much success in that project.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank
Please start construction and don't come back.
Okay, you got it. We won't be back.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, 11 Chapel Street LLC. There will be a public, this is an application for minor site plan review requested by 11 Chapel Street LLC for the conversion of the first floor, 600 plus or minus square feet of a barn to a commercial use for bicycle sales and repair shop and for a construction of parking access to support this use. The lot is located at 11 Chapel Street, tax map U2, lot 3 in the M2 zone. Is the applicant with us this evening?
I'm here, Eric Weinrib with Altus Engineering, as well as the applicant, Canal of 11 Chapel Street LLC. Excuse me. I don't think he has his video on, but that's okay.
Great. Before you get started, Mr. Weinrib, Diane, is this application complete? You need to unmute. Do I need to unmute you? There you go.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I have reviewed the application against the checklist. There were some areas where there were some things that were missing, and I contacted the applicant, and he was very quick to get back to us with the revised plan. So everything is in order, so I recommend that the planning board accept this application for technical review. Thank you.
Okay. Can I have a motion by the board to accept the application as substantially complete?
I make a motion that we accept the application as substantially complete.
Thank you, Mr. Doucette. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Roll call vote. Scott Blackstone. You're on mute, Scott.
Aye.
Thank you. Mikhail Zahorik.
Aye.
Jeff Goldknopf.
Aye.
Tim Rosignol.
Aye.
William Doucette.
Aye.
Jane Ford.
Aye.
And Val Shelton, aye. Okay, Mr. Weinrib, please you have the floor.
Okay.
Or the screens, as we will say.
And I will try to share screen here. Am I up there?
You are up there.
Fantastic. say after a year, I'm finally getting comfortable with some of this. So this is an overview aerial of the site area. It's on the corner. I think it's actually a little bit larger than the lot. Someone else did it, but it's on the corner of Granite and Chapel, and it's got two buildings on it now. Ambit Engineering Surveying did an existing condition survey for the owner, which identifies, I'll just go through quickly, Granite Street, Chapel Street. Obviously, Chapel is very steep. There's a single family residence on the lot, very up close to the corner of Chapel and Granite. There's a second single family residence up close to the Stone School and Granite Street. When Mr. Cannell bought the property, there was a barn on the property that was in poor shape. He tore that barn down with permit, reconstructed the barn in a slightly different location so that the current existing condition plan is the plan that is accurate today.
The one that we're looking at?
The one that you were looking at is accurate based on today's condition, showing the location of the barn, the access to the stairs going up to the second level, the deck off the barn, and then the stairs down to the ground level. This is our proposed site plan, and again, these are the three existing buildings. This is the single family residence, the second residence, and then this is the existing barn. We got zoning relief using Chris Mulligan to allow the retail operations to exist on the properties. That the barn is now hopefully going to be used for a bicycle shop. And I just want to point out, before I go too much further, area here in magenta is the location of the former barn. So when it got reconstructed, essentially the same size, it got moved over into the center portion of the lot more, so that it's better positioned for in regard to the setbacks and just in the center of the lot. So what we're proposing is to make that a retail use with the basement as storage, the bike shop on the first floor, and then the bike shop owner's office on the upper level. There'll be no public access to the upper level. The access to the second floor is exterior through that stairwell area. There are three existing off-site parking spaces that are in the street that have been historically used by the residents there. They're not exclusive use of the residents, and actually, I don't know, I just never noticed a sign when I was out there before, but Diane pointed out, and it's in her staff memo, that there's a sign on the building that says exclusive use of the tenants, and that's a nice thing to kind of put up there, but that's not reasonable or expected, and we certainly will expect that the applicant removes that sign. We also are proposing that the spaces are striped, and that was just to formalize it, but that's nothing that's cast in stone. We just wanted to demonstrate that there's 3 spaces there today. There's room for 3 spaces in the future, and they don't need to be striped. That's just something that we had shown. So we are improving the access off of Granite. We're widening the driveway out to 18.5 feet, and then it constricts down to 15 and then 12 for a short portion, and then it opens back up to 14.5. And then the area around the parking spaces actually is in excess of the 25-foot aisle width. However, it's only in name. It's I think that your regulations require a 25-foot wide aisle, but it doesn't really flow well as a normal parking area. So we did ask for a waiver for aisle width, and we believe that a low volume site, some vehicles are going to be able to maneuver that site with no problem at all. Some larger vehicles are going to need to make multi-point turns. We also know that parking is not required in this zoning district when there's public parking within 500 feet. We're just down the hill from Main Street, and that is within 500 feet. So we're providing the 3 on-site spaces as an amenity to the site. Your zoning, your site review ordinance regulations require that we do provide handicap accessible parking. We do have a van accessible space. I'm not sure how often it's going to be used. And the owner is going to need to, if it does require handicap accessibility into the building, a means to make some building changes, because the building itself is not ADA accessible. That we know. In regards to runoff, there's very little change in impervious surfaces from the pre-development conditions. However, what we're proposing to mitigate and to make it better is that when the building was constructed, Bauer Construction did the work. It's been reported to us that he installed a dry well drain ring just off the corner of the new barn. That's for the perimeter drains, and what we're proposing to do is to route the roof into that from the new barn to divert that from surface flow. In addition, the van accessible parking stalls are permeable, and that allows a 4-to-1 ratio of impervious surfaces to drain onto a permeable surface. So we're keeping that lighter yellow area, this area here, as impervious. It's gravel, but it's essentially impervious, and allow that to drain onto the permeable surface. And I think that's really what we're trying to do. I think we're trying to keep it fairly simple. We're trying to make it a little bit better by providing some parking on the site, and I'm out of words. We're also providing a bike rack, and we are showing some limited snow storage. And we have a note on the plans that's saying, you know, this winter it probably would have been fine, but there's other winters where it wouldn't have, and that snow storage will be depicted in the areas on the plan, but there's not adequate space. We'll have it hauled off. Thank you.
Any questions from the board to the applicant in regards to the plan?
I do, Phil.
Bill, go ahead.
Thank you, Eric. Two questions relative to parking, and pardon my ignorance here on the requirement for a handicap parking space on a site like this. Is that typical, Eric?
It's in your regulations and I do not know I'm not well versed enough in ADA to really know whether or not any commercial space requires it or not. I know that my building, when I got it permitted in 95, 96 in downtown Portsmouth, it's a 200-year-old structure. I was not required to provide ADA access. I don't know if that's still the case, and in small commercial operations, I'm just not sure, but it is clear in your regulations that it's required. I'm more than happy not to provide it, but have some sort of sign outside saying, if someone's disabled, we'll make a way for them to get into the building.
I guess, and I can't speak for the board, I guess my position is I don't want to waive that requirement and then later on find out that the ADA does require it. But if the ADA does not specifically require it, if I looked at a hypothetical that 3 other abutting lots wanted to do similar type developments, we're going to have 4 handicap van spaces within 150 feet of each other that may never get used. I have a handicap space in front of my office window, and in 17 years it has never been used. So, and then the other, Eric, the 3 parking spaces reported to be on Granite Street, are they on the applicant's land or not?
The property line is right at the edge. They are in the street.
Okay, so those are
public spaces.
Well, it's a public road. If I look at the existing conditions plan, I don't see any spaces indicated there.
There aren't.
So I don't know whether or not, in fact, there are 3 spaces there, Eric.
Well, if you could look at the travel way in front of the southerly building.
Yep.
That is out, and I'll say on the west side of the power line. And then as you cross the driveway and you go towards the corner lot or the corner house, you can see that the pavement jogs in.
Yes.
And so that area, it has been used historically. Director of Public Works acknowledges it, and he has no issues with it.
Whoa.
You will get to that, Diane. Hold on.
I have it in the review.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Any other comments? Not comments. Any other questions from the planning board to the applicant? Jane?
When we talk about the parking, are we concerned at all about spacing? Because a lot of people will come with bikes that are attached to the back of their car, or they may come with a small trailer attached to the car. Is that part of the formula in allocating parking spaces? It's not.
They're just standard 9x18 parking spaces.
Okay, so that, but we don't have a
trailers and.
Can the applicant answer that?
Yeah, there's the standard space. There's space behind the vehicle that a bike rack can go on there. Most vehicles are not the full 18 feet. There are some that are, but there's room for a bicycle behind.
All right, thank you. I was just concerned about safety.
Any other questions from board members? Tim?
Yeah, just one question on parking, or on the parking. Is that area, basically, you've got the 2 parking spots if you were to pull straight into the lot, and then there's a little jog basically to the southwest. Yeah, down to the southwest there. Yep, in that area there. Is that meant to be a turnaround, or is that an additional parking spot there?
That's part of the turnaround area.
Okay. Yep. And then, I mean, just, it's meant to be a bike shop, which inherently most bike enthusiasts are going to be somewhat, I'll say, health conscious and fit. Is it that critical to have those parking spots on the owner's property, or is it acceptable to use the existing town parking, like you said, down on Main Street or any of the existing town lots?
Yeah, there is shared parking under the zoning, and we can talk about that.
Okay.
Any other, Tim, I'm sorry, any other questions?
That's all, thanks.
Any other, Scott, did you have a
I
question?
had a question.
You have the floor, Scott.
On the lower right area where the snow storage is, does that literally butt onto the Historical Society parking lot?
Over here.
Yeah.
It's kind of just. I didn't think that was a parking lot. It's just kind of a green area. It doesn't really have a lot of vegetation growing on it, but it is. I didn't think it was intended as a green area, and I mean as a parking lot. And
yeah, I was thinking, wouldn't it make sense to put a fence there to separate that property from the, from the Historical Society?
You can actually drive through right now.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes, you could.
There's some kind of reciprocal agreement, isn't there? Or is there? I don't know.
I don't know of any reciprocal agreement. I know that during construction there was some shared access on the two lots.
But, I think that would be important to know because of traffic flow.
I mean, it would not be intended to have traffic over there. I don't think we have the right to park.
Yeah, no, okay. Scott, did you have other questions?
No, that was it.
Any other board members?
I have one more,
Okay, can we let Jeff get in here? Bill first, thanks. Jeff, you have the floor.
Thank you, Val. Quick question for you, Eric. On the building on the south side of the property, is it typical that adjacent to a parking area where there are what I believe are LPG tanks, would there typically be bollards placed between those and the travel way?
Good question, and
That's
yes.
an excellent question. There are not any now, but and as a residential use, it probably wasn't required, but where it becomes a commercial use, there definitely should be some there. That's an excellent point.
Thank you. Can I just ask one more question? Would be, is there Granite Street is a two-way street, and is there a requirement for a travel way to not be impeded by striped parking areas? Width? No.
I don't know if the town has anything specific.
I think that we would take that up in the TRC. Jeff, any other questions?
Oh, that's going to do it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Real
Bill,
quick
you're
one,
back up.
Eric. It doesn't show on the existing conditions plan other than that it's a pad on the south side of the south building. If you look in Google Earth, that pad has a oil tank on it, and that appears to be across the property line. If this wasn't a site plan review opening up this type of thing, we wouldn't even look at it. But since this is site plan,
right here?
Yes.
I don't know if that's a oil tank or I think there was some sort of window box and planter that goes beyond.
Let me look.
But there might be an oil tank as well. I mean, my mind went to like a bow window and a window box type area.
Yeah, looks like an oil tank as of, well, it's an old photo. So there was, in 2012, there was an oil tank there. So
I believe the tank was removed.
Great. Problem solved.
So that's why I never saw it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, I think we want to send this to a limited TRC review. Is that your recommendation, Diane?
Yes, it is. And I have provided a recommendation. I've spent a lot of time looking at this lot over the last 6 months, and I have had many discussions with several people, including the applicant's engineer. And he has come together and come forward with 3 iterations of the plan, and with each one, it's an improvement. And I want to thank him, Eric, for his due diligence, because this is a very difficult lot. This is a lot that's barely 0.2 acres in size, and there's a lot of activity going on in this lot. You have 2 structures, and they did get a variance from the zoning board, and they were granted relief. But in addition to the 2 homes and apartments, there's this new space that was created from a former barn. And unfortunately, when it was located, there wasn't a whole lot of consideration as to how the site would work for any kind of commercial retail use. As a matter of fact, the building inspector at the time was very clear with the applicant and indicated that space, that barn, could not be used for commercial, could only be used as an accessory building. But here we are. There's been some changes. They've gone to the zoning board. They got their variance, and good for them. I do want to say that we're only talking about 650 square feet of commercial space on the lower floor of this building. But there's a lot of activity. There's not a whole lot of open space, as you can well see, which is one of the reasons I asked the applicant to provide some color to the sketches so that we could see that, yes, there's very little open space. There's very little area for drainage. And if you look also closely, you'll see that it's very, very tight parking for maneuvering, getting in and out of those spaces. And they have 2 parking spaces plus an ADA. And yes, we will get some feedback.
Diane, you want to send this to limited technical review committee?
Yeah, but I want people to understand the process that I went through in coming up with my recommendations. And that also I consulted with the public works director, who said there is not enough space out there for 3 parking spaces. And he is recommending that it be reduced to 2. There's also a stop sign there, and there's also limited site.
Okay.
So I want to be able to impart the message that this is an extremely difficult and challenging site. And that, yes, indeed, we need to have a technical review on parts of it. And we also have some retaining walls that are being proposed, and those have to be designed by a structural engineer. And there's a whole variety of issues that come into play. So normally something as minor as a 620 square foot commercial space would just be dismissed at the first meeting. In good conscience, I can't recommend that happen. And I'm recommending that our town consulting engineer do a review of the plan, focusing on the grading, the drainage, and the waivers that would be necessary for parking, and also to get something formal from Rick. I have a one-line, Rick, our public works director, I have a one-line email from him, but I guess my point is that, yeah, we really need to have a TRC. I have presented that to the applicant, and to my understanding, he's agreeable with that. So with that would be my recommendation, that we forward this to TRC and that we continue this to a future date.
Okay. So who would like to, thank you, who would like to serve with who would like to do a limited review on this? I need like 3 people who are in agreement to serve on the TRC. Bill? Jeff? Am I missing anyone? I need 1 more.
I suppose I'll jump into this one.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it very much. Yep. Okay. Diane will coordinate with the applicant and with the any department heads that need to be involved on this for input, and obviously have the applicant have the application get over to the town engineer for review as well, and comments back to the applicant. So with that in mind, I would like a motion to continue this application, the hearing, to the May 11th meeting.
Correct.
Who is making that motion? Bill, you're unmuted. You got it.
Okay, I'll make that. I was hoping somebody else will. I'll make the motion that we continue to the May 11th meeting.
And a second, please.
I got it. Second.
Jane is a second. So roll call vote. Scott Blackstone.
Aye.
Thank you. Mikhail Zaharik.
Aye.
Jeff Goldknopf.
Aye.
Tim Rosignol.
Aye.
William Doucette.
Aye.
Jane Ford.
Aye.
Valerie Shelton. Aye. Motion carries, and we will see you back on the 11th.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been a while since I've been before you guys in Newmarket, and it's always a pleasure. I like the way you guys run your meetings.
Thank you. Okay, have a nice evening. Next on the agenda, any new or old business? Any board members have any, new or old business to discuss? Diane, any new or old business before I get into committee and chairman's report? You'll still have a planner's report at the end. Nothing on any prior applications?
There is a virtual program being put on by the Office of Strategic Initiatives, and that's on May 15th. Susan Jordan has sent out information, and for any of the new members, this would be a good opportunity to get some hands-on training for the work that the planning board does, and help to make sense of this process that we find ourselves in. So anyway, there is money available to pay for any registration fees that might be Encouraged as part of that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Chairman is not with us. Vice Chair has nothing to report. Are any committees or any other commissions meeting? Do we need to appoint any members? We should think about that at the next meeting to the different commissions. Who is Sarah serving on Conservation Commission?
Sarah is no longer on
yeah, right, not on the board. So that I meant we need to replace Sarah on the Conservation Commission. So Diane, could you just put out a memo as to what appointments need to be made and we'll have that on the next meeting's agenda.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Hearing no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Good job, Tim.
I'm a fast learner.
Is there a second?
Here you go.
Jeff had a second on it. And roll call vote. Val Shelton, aye. Jane Ford.
Aye.
Bill Doucette.
Aye.
Tim Rosignol.
Aye.
Chef Goldnup.
Aye.
Mikhail Zakorak.
Aye.
And Scott Blackstone.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the
Thank you,
rest of
Val.
the evening.
Good
And
night.
Good night.
next month, I think we may be transitioning over to the town hall as more and more people get vaccinated.
Nice.
We'll still run in parallel.